I think already a poll has been taken. How many of you think AI will take your job? And very few hands went up. However, if AI as a revolution is changing the IT industry itself, then it's a very different ballgame. I am of the view that it will fundamentally change and possibly reshape the entire IT industry. What is going to change is not about jobs, it's about models. And I am of the advocating that it will really, really impact the IT industry in a similar way as what invention of electricity, invention of steam engines did to the pre-industrial revolution era of economy. So Sreedhar, what is your opinion?
So I cannot agree more with you on that part. That is, we're at an inflection point where we're getting fundamentally disrupted.
Yeah.
But I want to reflect upon this particular point.
We cannot hear you.
The mic is not working. It's not working.
Sorry about that. I was just telling that I couldn't agree more with Renu on that particular aspect of it, that we're getting fundamentally disrupted. But I was reflecting on the topic itself, where we use a very powerful word, which is demise of the Indian IT industry. And I'm not here to defend the status quo, but I'm here to argue that agentic AI and the AI era that we are in will be the single biggest growth catalyst for the IT services industry. So that's how I would kind of phrase it as an opening statement of my argument.
So let's dive deep into what does demise mean actually. Does demise mean wiping out the industry itself? Probably not. Does demise mean the change of model itself? So IT industry has grown over the last 3 decades. One fundamental model, amongst many, but one fundamental model. One was labor arbitrage and dollars for effort. And effort multiplied by the number of hours. This chain is getting broken. No longer is it going to be the model that survives where you can charge for the effort. No longer can you just charge for even process knowledge. I heard somebody speak about why process knowledge is important, but process knowledge is now largely digitized. What it needs is context. So context is sitting with most of the IT, not with the IT organization, but with the principles. So the value that IT organizations used to bring was you had bench. So how many of you think in the era of AI, bench is even relevant? No, none of the hands has gone up. The reason is, one of the strength of an IT services company was you had bench, you could produce the number of required resources on a very short time scale. That is gone. There is no bench, no required. Which means the CFO start looking at how do we get better EBITDA, no bench, better margins. So that's what I call the demise of the model itself. However, I agree with you that IT companies will not disappear, but the nature of those companies will change tremendously. Take for example, how many of you know about Nortel Networks? So Nortel Networks was a very old company which started with telecom, used to even create toasters at one point in time, and evolved into network capabilities. Similar, but gradual transition. And then comes AI and it folds up.
So one thing which I want to add further to what you just said on the demise part, right? So every decade we see somebody come up and write the obituary of the Indian IT industry. Right? In the 90s, we had the Y2K, we had a gravy train that everybody rode on that. In 2000s, we had the offshore backlash. In 2010s, we had the cloud and automation, which kind of disrupted every single thing that the IT industry was doing. And now it's all about agentic AI. But every wave of change has actually expanded the market, and the IT companies have been quite resilient to kind of adopt to this, right? For example, the mainframe were the catalyst to drive automation of calculations, and that led to the software industry. ERPs automated business processes, which led to the system integration industry. And then cloud led to the automation of infrastructure, which led to perhaps tripling IT budgets. So, and agentic AI is no different. If you look at agentic AI today, you need great expertise in terms of orchestration. So it might lead to an orchestration industry. You need a lot of people in terms of governance and building the trust. It may lead to a governance industry. You need people, when we see that agentic AI could dramatically transform your business itself, right, in terms of reimagining the business. So it may lead to a reimagining industry as such, in terms of how you look at building in agentic AI into everything that you are doing, right? So I see that potential being really huge. But one thing which I want to borrow from the previous this session that we had, we talked about whom are you going to call at 2 a.m., right? You will need a trusted partner who understands your business, who understands your domain, and can take your calls at 2 a.m. and have a contractual obligation to do what they have to do to keep your systems up and running, right? So that is one thing. But to your point, which I would agree a lot, where who is going to capture this growth that the agentic AI era offers, right? I would talk about enterprises which can do 3 things. So one is they pivot towards becoming a domain-centric organization, invest in domain knowledge, and build agentic solutions frameworks which are vertical oriented. Second thing would be to have a team that is focusing on owning that trust layer. So the trust layer becomes extremely important. And then looking at transforming the entire business by understanding the data layer part, right? So one is the data layer, other one is the trust layer, other one is the third one would be the orchestration layer, and based on the domain. So if companies can pivot towards these 3, and then they become the leaders here. So that's how I would say. They're certainly not going to die, but they're going to change themselves, right?
I agree, and yet disagree a little bit. The reason being, Indian IT industry has spent a lot of years doing labor arbitrage, entry-level coders, and the recent models which have gone out, say Anthropic, OpenAI, everybody, those entry-level jobs are disappearing. There's a prediction that in 5 years, those jobs will not exist. And I think that's a very benign prediction. In my view, in 18 months, 90% of those jobs are gone. That's how fast the things are moving. And there is a lot of debate that is happening at these large AI companies, the foundational model companies. They are trying to project a benign world, but the reality is very brutal. A lot of entry-level jobs, and those work in IT industry, Indian IT industry, are fast disappearing because the customers are able to do this and deploy. Yes, higher order stuff, setting up data layer, orchestration, they're still there, but for how long? So in my view, every industry evolves, but can Indian IT industry evolve fast enough? Look at the productization wave in the sector. We create products which will have assets. But majority of the Indian IT companies have not very large named products ascribed to them, except barring few. So that pivot didn't happen towards productization. And this time it's very different. This time the core is being attacked. The core is hours for dollars. Hours get automated, the per hour rate drops, and that's a core that is getting impacted. All the other innovation was being fueled by the core. When the core is impacted severely, the demise of the model is inevitable. And that's
100%.
And that's the thing that should be worrying all of us. But having said that, Sreedhar, I agree with you. Indian IT industry has been very resilient.
Correct.
It has evolved, but my view is that this is something very different. It's not your gradual evolution. Earlier we had time. The changes that were coming took a little bit time to come. That disruption is happening in months now. And that's where the problem starts. So, in my view, demise is not the right word, but evolution and erasure of majority of the revenue what is coming towards Indian IT industries is going away.
Yeah, absolutely. So this the entire labor arbitrage model that we had, that's the story of the past, right? If companies have to pivot, and we spoke about those three areas, one of them would be also changing the contractual models, right? If you're still focusing on input-based pricing, that's not going to take you anywhere in this new era. It has to be output-based or even outcome-based. That's what would really matter. Input-based is your time and material, like you said. That labor arbitrage part is gone. People are not going to even ask you how many people you have on the project anymore. It's all about what is it that you can deliver for me, what is the skin in the game, and how soon you can deliver. So that's what will be the conversation that IT service providers will be having with the CXOs going forward. But on the going away of jobs of freshers, that's a real aspect. So one thing but my optimism comes from two factors. So one is, of course, the resilience that we have witnessed over the past, mainframe era, ERP era, cloud, etc. But also, if you look at historically, right? You talked about steam engines. There was one economist by name 𝗵𝗂𝗵𝗂𝗱𝗲 who exactly observed a counterintuitive phenomenon, where as the steam engines became more efficient, the demand for coal surprisingly did not fall, but it exploded. Right? So what it means is that efficiency actually unlocks demand. So you will need more hands, more brains to do things because you're going to do more work, right? So that's how I see, that's where my optimism comes. Again, like you said, if the IT industry, IT companies are not making that pivot in the way you articulated, I think then they will be left behind.
That's the abundance argument which is being propagated a lot in the market, and it has some holes. Historically, the abundance has exploded, I agree. So whenever each evolution happened, we see that society as a whole gets more, and more gets trickled down to a large part to the population. Living standards have improved, incomes have improved across different domains and geographies, but the abundance argument has a limitation. The limitation is this: if the trickle-down effect this time doesn't happen, and look at the distribution of capital once you start looking deeply at how AI is being reshaped. Few organizations across the globe are holding both the capital as well as the compute capacity. This time this is a little different, because the compute capacity is earlier it was this compute capacity exploding, and as you went into different geographies, you were tapping that. But this time it's centralizing, and that's where the abundance argument slightly starts falling short, because the trickle-down effect may not happen. And that's why we are having all those large OpenAI, Anthropic CEOs talking about 4 days a week, giving some allowances, income distribution, because they see what is coming. And that's going to affect this as well. So I agree to a certain extent the abundance argument. Economy as a whole will be unlocked, but for Indian IT industry and the people therein, it may not be the rosy scenario that we are painting, because in every evolution there have been a certain set of workers who had to either reskill or disappear. In this case, the jury is still out whether we will disappear or will evolve.
So one other thing which I want to talk about, see, we are a cricket learning nation, and we look at test matches where we play for 5 days. We say that the pitch changes every session, and batsmen who have adapted go on to score centuries or even survive if they have to defend a particular match, right? So we have that DNA in us to kind of look at the pitch and adapt. This is like the pitch is changing, right? Pitch is getting totally reset. It's not that we're going away from the regular pitch to playing on gravel, but still the pitch is changing, and we have the ability to adapt. That's what drives my optimism, saying that if we adapt well, if we can pivot to the right set of values and capabilities, I think we are here to survive, and not only survive, but grow significantly hereafter.
So let's take a quick vote. Speaking of changing pitches, how many of your organizations, just raise your hand, who are now getting more and more into outcome-based contracts rather than very few hands have gone up. So no more than, let's say, not even 10%. And that is a warning signal. If only less than 10% of the organizations in this room have started looking at outcome-based contracts, rest 90, assuming that you are still from the service industry, are in danger. With that,
yes,
future looks nice, but alarming as well at the same time. Thank you very much.
Cannot agree more.